When the British occupied New York in 1776 during the American Revolution, they recognized the strategic importance of one of the best natural harbors in the world. When they left in 1783, the potential of that harbor was in its infancy and recognized as having enormous economic potential. Shipping was the key, and ship safety essential. This was such a high priority that George Washington authorized the construction of a lighthouse at Montauk, Long Island in 1792. The volume of shipping increased so quickly that an additional light was needed to help guide ships to New York, and the first Fire Island light was built on Great South Beach in 1826.
The sea breaking majestically on the shore, then receding. We rested a while, then proposed to go up to the top of the lighthouse. It is 7 stories high. Quite a curiosity to see the apparatus up there. The large silver reflectors, which cost $40 apiece. Then look abroad the vast ocean and think of the dangers of the great deep, and turn and look at the other side and see the expanse of water called the bay. Elizabeth Howell Blanchard, June 26, 1844.
Although this beacon was a great aid to navigation, it had shortcomings. It was not tall enough to reach over the curvature of the Earth and thus had limited sight distance. Between 1826 and 1855, there were several notable shipwrecks on Great South Beach. Perhaps the most famous was the wreck of the Elizabeth in July of 1850. Margaret Fuller, an early feminist and noted author, and her family were among the victims. The publicity surrounding her death was the motivation to once again improve navigation conditions along the south shore of Long Island. A new, taller lighthouse was commissioned, which could send its beacon further out to ships off Fire Island. The Fresnel lens was relatively new in the mid-19th century, but clearly had the ability to focus a beam of light a great distance offshore. The only source for these complex lenses was Paris, France, and Paris was also the best source for the precision iron castings necessary for proper orientation of the individual lenses. In 1894, a dynamo building was erected on the site of the old lighthouse keeper's quarters. The plan was to replace oil lamps with an electrical light source for the tower. Later, the Coast Guard replaced this building with a boathouse. The lens functioned at the Fire Island Lighthouse from 1858 until 1933. Upon its removal, the lens was loaned to the Franklin Institute, a science and technology museum in Philadelphia. At Fire Island, the lens was eventually replaced by the airport-style beacon in operation today. Since the lens was considered excess government property, it was not treated with very much respect when being dismantled. The chips and dings that we see in the lens today were likely to have been produced during this removal process. As the mission and needs of the Franklin Institute changed, the lens was disassembled in 2000 and put into storage. The Fire Island Lighthouse Preservation Society, in conjunction with the Fire Island National Seashore and the National Park Service, immediately began to make plans to return the lens to its Fire Island home. The logical location for the lens would be a facsimile of the old dynamo building. The boathouse was moved to near its original location, north of the lighthouse, and the site was prepared for the new building. While this was taking place, the lens was moved from Philadelphia to the National Park Service Curatorial Storage Facility in Mastic, and then to the Park Service Maintenance Facility in Patchogue. Finally, in March 2011, the lens was transported in a caravan of vehicles to Fire Island for final restoration and assembly. After its arrival at Fire Island, each lens panel was carefully inspected and the lenses recaulked where necessary. In addition, several metal parts of the lens mechanism were missing or had deteriorated. These were refabricated and installed on the lens. The reassembly of the lens was an amazing as well as historic event. This lens is one of the few intact First Order Fresnel lenses in existence. It is the soul of the Fire Island Light. It was an aid to navigation here for 75 years and has now finally come home.